I can see you clearly. Tu Tía Bruja.
Hola, ¿qué tal? You are listening to Tu Tía Bruja. This is our first episode, and I am Bex Carlos, your host. Quick introduction on me and who I am. I'm a Chicana podcaster, podcast editor, podcast producer. I have been so lucky to work with a lot of women of color, Black and brown women specifically. I've worked on such shows as Dear Franny, Balanced Black Girl, That's What She Did podcast, The Femtourage, and I did a reboot of Little Women. I've been so lucky, and now I want to focus on a podcast that allows me to talk about something very important to me in my life, witchcraft, spirituality. It took me a really long time to find my power and find, what worked for me. Growing up Catholic, it was very harmful to me. As an intuitive who early on I saw more and I would feel more and hear more, and maybe it's because I neglected that ability, that it's not as strong as it once was. I felt that if I was interested in this stuff, if it spoke to me, there had to be something wrong with me. I had to be evil. And my family came from a very Catholic background, probably about until age, 25. I really thought that if, the more I dug into this, something bad could happen to me. I could be possessed. I guess I thought it was worth it. And it is worth it because it allowed me to get to the other side and really realize what does make me happy. And for me, that's witchcraft and just talking about this stuff. Something I want to do with this platform is to uplift Black and brown and queer people and the intersections that they're at. I have a lot of privilege, and I acknowledge that 100%. I realize and I see many people in my community treating Afro-Latinos badly. And that makes me very mad because we're all of the same blood. We come from the same Indigenous, European, and African people. We are the bastardized children of the colonizers. And between ourselves, we've decided who the favorite is. And that's fucked up. And I'm going to be using this platform to change that narrative. And if that's not something you like, I would just suggest you tune out now. We owe our Black brothers and sisters a lot. And we can't just stand by as they're dying at the hands of police. We just can't. And I just want people to treat people better. I want to help in some tiny way create the world that I want to be a part in. I'm highly sensitive to people and their emotions, and just everything around me is screaming, and I can't keep seeing this, and if I am tired of seeing this, there are people who are tired of living it. And us as lighter skinned Latinos need to do our part. We need to correct our tias and our tios and our abuelos. I'm going to make a statement before we jump into our conversation. We are podcasters, bloggers, YouTubers, influencers, etc., united to condemn the tragic murders of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and many, many, many others at the hands of the police. This is a continuation of the systemic racism perverse in our country since its inception. We are committed to standing against racism in all of its forms. We believe that to be silent is to be complicit. We believe that Black lives matter. We believe that Black lives are more important than property. We believe that we have a responsibility to use our platforms to speak out against injustice whenever and wherever we are to witness it. In creating digital media, we have built audiences that return week after week to hear our voices, and we will use those voices to speak against anti-Blackness and police brutality. And we encourage our audience to be educated, engaged, and take action. To put the focus on Afro-Latinx people, I invited my friend Lizz Florival to be our first guest. And I want this conversation to educate and to just hear the perspective of someone who is just like us. And for whatever reason, we feel like we have to exclude people, separate people when they speak Spanish too, the language of the colonizer. And to remind us that mestizo or white presenting Latin person, we sometimes push the emotional and mental labor onto our Afro-Latinx brothers and sisters. And we got to stop that. We can fucking read. The internet's there, So without further ado, here's my conversation with Lizz Florival. Liz, thank you so much for being on this episode of Tu Tía Bruja.
I think it's really cool to be here, so thank you for having me.
I really wanted to have you on, one, because I don't know a whole lot about chakras, and everybody keeps telling me how important they are.
Yes.
And two, you're someone who's at the intersex of being both Black and Latina, and I think that that's a perspective that not enough people hear, and I really would love to hear your wisdom and just have you on.
Definitely.
Are you doing what you can to take care of yourself, and is there anything that white Latinos could do in the effort to, help?
I think that it's kind of hard to take care of myself as well as completely disconnect from what's going on. So it's finding a balance and knowing that in its own way, being resilient is self-caring. And what I wish a lot of white Latinos would know is that your silence is loud. And it's very interesting, especially for brujas, to be quiet during a time where everything that you spiritually do, your rituals, the knowledge that you have comes from a Black and or Indigenous person. And so you can't bring flowers to Goddess Oshun and not worry about the rest of her children. So spirituality is for everyone, but know where it came from. And so don't ask us how you can help. A lot of people have been reaching out to Black people for that. We're exhausted. Find ways to educate yourself about what's going on. I don't think it's that complicated to know what genocide and injustice looks like. And if you can't do something major like go out to a protest, start at your house with the people that are like, oh, they're commenting negatively on people, especially Black people, because we all have them. In our Latin households, we all have a tío, a tía, abuela, whoever that criticizes Black people, knowing that somewhere down the line, you have Black people in your blood.
So many people forget that.
Yeah.
If you look into your family line, all Latinos, if you look into your family line and if you are not, a presenting Black Latino, there's something in there. I personally have noticed that the deeper I get into social justice and the more that I get into correcting people around me, the stronger my craft.
Yeah, you're touching closer to where it stems from. You can't act like you're this big fruit and not even look at how deep the roots go. And so if you're pulling up the roots, pull it all the way and stand in that. If you completely disagree, don't be silent or halfway about it. Like wherever you stand in it. Don't hide from it. The fact that a lot of people are silent is because they're uncomfortable about what's going on and what to do about it. So that means you have the privilege to not pay attention to social injustice and murder. And so question yourself about that. The fact that you can have a really good day while all this is going on, like check that. Because all of the people that are Black, we're exhausted. We're tired of mourning and we're in grief and we can't have a good day.
How can you when you see people who look like you being hurt, for one, just existing? The thing that's been making me so sick is that people keep using Dr. King's words as a way to shut people up who are rightfully upset.
Oh, yeah.
I saw on Twitter that his children were speaking out, and so many people, and it wasn't just one, it was several people who were like, your father was a brilliant man. He wouldn't have agreed with this.
And what it shows is how disconnected from it they are, because the fact that you think that you can use Dr. King as an example of peaceful protesters are being thrown tear gas at. So peaceful protesting has not led us to anything better than where we're at right now. So he wouldn't have been murdered if that was enough.
Historically, the FBI teamed up with the Memphis Police Department. This is something that's so rooted in our country, in the institutions.
It's in the foundation. It's not only water and cement that's mixed in the foundation of America. It's blood, and it's Black blood, and it's Indigenous blood. And so it's crazy to find different ways of saying, but just stop killing us. Like, let us mind our business, live our life. And why do you have a but or an asterisk to that? Keep that same energy you have for the people who are prevented from migrating over here. The same children that are in cages. All of it is a social justice humanity issue. So why is it different when it's Black people?
I think that a lot of people just have to do a lot of work, you know?
Yeah, it's not going to happen overnight. It hurts and it's uncomfortable, but like doing the work and figuring yourself out is where everything, all the change can begin. But if you want to be ignorant about it, then, you know, you're probably going to be caught in the wave of change because there's too much going on energetically. It's not going to die off.
No, it's not.
So either get with it or just move out the way because it's not going to be pretty. And change and protesting and justice has never been pretty.
Not in this country. I feel like the only way to really enact change is through we learned violence through the government.
Exactly.
You can't tell us that violence doesn't work.
Right. Why does so much money goes to violence, if you think about it? Most of our funding doesn't go to schools and food, and no, it goes to militarizing. The funding just shows where the priorities are. And so it just says a lot about where we are right now.
When people start caring more about lives, more than they care about possessions, you know, I think that will be a big change. This country as a whole just really has a whole lot of work to do.
Yep, 100%.
Speaking of work, I know that you had said that you're trying to stay like in a balanced place as much as possible. Have you been invoking more magical practices than you typically do?
I've had to. Protection, energetic cleansing, because there's just so much being felt right now. So yeah, definitely, and looking to study more options to further the practice. I think it's a really good idea if there are any allies, even though I feel weird using that word, but if anyone that does care about social justice and humanity, if you have a spiritual art that you practice, and that's one way that you can help.
Yeah, it takes no work to light a candle. I light black candles for protection.
Mm-hmm.
And I carve specific things into them that, you know, what I'm trying to protect or what I'm trying to redirect some of that negative energy to. There's so many things you can do.
Yes.
If you can't make it out. Donating money obviously is wonderful. Do that. Donate money if you can't be there. But, you know, tiny things that you can do to change up your practice.
Agreed. Fully agreed. We make it this really huge thing, but just focus on one person or one group. Make it biteable sized and smaller so that you can feel like you're not overwhelmed by taking, you know, this whole structure and fighting this structure. Just start small. The same care that you take for yourself, you can do for other people.
Okay, something that you might help clarify, chakras.
Yes, let us talk chakras. So chakras are energy wheels that we have, right? And they're basically along our spine. And there's a whole bunch of them, but everyone usually focuses on the 7 main ones because they're like in our body and there's the crown that's up top of the body. So basic 101, there's 7 chakras. And it usually starts from the bottom up. So the root is at the end of the base of the spine. And the root is basically like your physical foundation. So where you feel secure and supported. The next one is the sacral chakra, which is where your sexual organs are. And it's your creation energy. So they're all different energies that spin. You move up, it's the solar plexus, which is where confidence comes from. And just like when you're at your highest, that's kind of where it all comes from. Next one is heart chakra, and that's love, self-love, value. The following is at the throat, and that is the throat chakra, which is speaking your truth, which I feel like many people need to work on that one. And then it is the third eye, which is your intuition. And then above the third eye is the crown, where you connect to your higher self and your guides and all of that good stuff. So that is basically like chakras in a nutshell.
how would one go about, especially if you're feeling all of your chakras are blocked right now because of all the energy and constantly being disappointed by people around you, which I think a lot of Black people are experiencing right now. What would be a good way, and which ones would be the most vital to cleanse during this time?
I think for a lot of us that are not feeling safe, I would say the root chakra. The disappointment is in the heart chakra, and feeling hopeless and all of those like heavy, heartbroken feelings, basically. In order to clear out these, or it's not really clearing out, it's balancing them, because either there's too much or not enough. And there's different things to do. It's usually a holistic method. So you'll gravitate to certain foods when one of your chakras or any of your chakras are off. So like, let's say an idea I like to give is like the grocery store. You go into the grocery store and you start just randomly picking things when you don't have a list. You'll notice you have more green foods, more red foods. If it's the root, you're eating more red foods, strawberries, cherries, things with antioxidants. Heart chakra is green, so more green foods. I also really like on YouTube, there's frequencies. And there's different Tibetan bowl sounds that you can look up and just put root chakra healing. And those frequencies you can play while sleeping or in your house. And those really help balance you. It's really being intentional about how you're eating, how you're taking care of yourself. Even wearing the color will help. And there are certain essential oils as well. So like a clove, a cinnamon. Frankincense is good for everything, really. Mint, peppermint. So different essential oils go with each chakra as well.
Also, you are like the third person who has mentioned a Tibetan bowl to me, so I think that I just need to get one.
It's the best thing. It is really awesome and very powerful. So even like the smaller ones, just making the sound and playing with it, it brings us back to the present. And I think that's where the issues are. Things that throw off the chakras is usually fear and not being in the moment. That helps with your meditation. And I would also say crystals. That's a really big one too. There are a lot of great crystals that go with the colors. So root, you would want red crystals. Heart chakra, you want green or pink.
I find crystals to be so fascinating and pretty. I just got a book on them, but have you seen the meme where it's like Sabrina the Teenage Witch from like the old Sabrina, and she has all of these plates in front of her and she's like eating like a bite of one? And that's how I feel about witchcraft. So you've definitely added a couple of things to that list that I need to work on.
It's a lot.
It is a lot. I've gotten very comfortable with like candle magic. Cleansing baths, I feel, work really well for me.
Oh, those are wonderful. Yes. We may overthink it, but our body will tell us what we need. So like, yes, a spiritual bath, just see what you gravitate towards. Cause sometimes I'm like, I want a spiritual bath, but I don't really know what I want to put in it. And I'll just start picking stuff from my stash, start grabbing things. And that's what the body needs. So I think it's centering ourselves and listening. Okay, what do you need from me? And give it that. I have no measurements, no nothing. I just start throwing stuff all together and I'm like, okay, this works. This feels good. So yeah, there's no one way to be a witch and there's no one thing. So I do a little bit of everything, you know? My dad growing up would take me to a lot of, I guess it wasn't exactly a museum, but they would have different things about like voodoo and information and ancestral information. So I kind of learned that way, but I didn't tap into it until 4 or 5 years ago. And I'm like, oh, it's all starting to make sense now.
Did you have signs though, like early on in your life that you were kind of inclined to this spiritual kind of work or knowledge?
What I've realized is usually what people attack you for is where your powers are. So I would always feel when either I didn't agree with someone or didn't like their vibe. And I'm just like, I don't like this person. I don't have an explanation. I'm just not going to rock with it. Or there would be an event and I'm like, hey, we're not going to this event. I feel this way. And sometimes when we didn't listen, like friends of mine, something would happen. And that's since as a little kid. And I've always just been very observant. So I think that also was an issue that I had at home. I wouldn't really ask questions or anything, and I would get in trouble for it. But it's not that I didn't understand what was going on. It's just I'm an observer. So I think that you kind of always kind of know until you start tapping into it and you're like, hey, this is actually a superpower.
When I was a kid, I would see a lot of stuff. And I think the most damaging, well, two of the most damaging things my mother did, I think she meant well, but one is she told me that they weren't really there. That added, is something wrong with me? Am I mentally ill? Which I mean, there's mental illness there, but that's not the point.
That it goes with it.
Yeah, no, I think so. And then the second thing is when I was probably about 8, she had me watch The Exorcist.
Oh, wow.
That really just made me really scared of the occult. And I had this inner struggle where I was like, but it's so interesting, but it's bad. Bad could happen to you. For me, things would sort of appear or make light. And I was just like, nope, you're not going to acknowledge them. Like, you're not going to see them.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of witches kind of struggle with that too, is, I think parents had a concern to protect you.
Yeah.
Kind of make it worse.
Yeah. Sometimes it does happen that way.
Yeah.
So I do feel things and I see energy in people. So if they practice something and it's kind of like a heavy type of spirituality, I'm like, I see this. Okay. And just know how to move with it.
People have, and I think that comes from like a European perspective of different types of magic and how there's white magic and black magic. I think that's all bullshit. I think it's benevolent and malevolent because you could be, one of these good vibe witches who's ignoring and being quiet while like people are being oppressed. We had said earlier, because you're becoming the oppressor,
Yeah, it's a type of violence.
And I think that for that reason, some people don't really do other types of magic because the ancestors are not giving them that power. Because like, why would I give you knowledge to do this if you're going to hurt people?
Yeah.
In the process.
Agreed. I think everything is intention.
I know personally a lot of people who dabble in hexing, but only hex harmful racists or abusers. And you can't look me in the eye and tell me that that's, malevolent magic. What's more damaging? This person existing and continuing to cause harm?
Right. Agreed.
At the end of the day, like with your magic, everyone has to have a mantra.
Yes. And I think also that magic sees you. And so you have to be careful with what your intentions are because it might just backfire. It's an equal give and take. We're composed of light as we are composed of shadow. And if you're reaching out to guides or ancestors and you don't really know who or what you're reaching out to, you might cause your own self-harm. So don't play with stuff that you don't know what you're doing or what you're intending. And if your intentions aren't pure, then be careful because magic sees you.
And I'm really glad that you said that too, because that's another thing too. Not all magic is for everybody.
No.
If you are not a Black person, don't fuck with voodoo. Just don't.
Facts. Like, who are you reaching out to? Like, who are you talking to? If you can't even connect with humanity and social justice, what makes you think that you can connect with one of the most powerful spiritual energies ever that are rooted in Black people and fighting oppression? It's not just a spell, it's a way of life. There are things that I don't even know and don't dabble in because honestly, I don't know what I'm doing.
It's deeply enrooted in people's traditions and cultures and customs. Don't fuck with it. It's not for you.
Exactly.
I don't know if you saw, but there was a woman and was asking information on Papa Legba. And
yeah.
Okay, yeah, you know about this. She learned about Papa Legba from American Horror Story.
No, Jesus.
Because, there was that season of Coven where he was a major player. And Hollywood has definitely done a lot of damaging stuff with the portrayal of any type of magic that has not come from the New England or Eurocentric type of magic. I mean, even that those portrayals are wrong, but it's especially been damning to Black and brown witches because it kind of just makes a farce of our traditions and magic. All right, but when people start thinking that these spirits are happy-go-lucky and y'all are responsible.
Yep, and that's what happens. You're reaching out to something that doesn't belong to you. And so it backfired. And I sadly don't have a lot of sympathy for it, because just because you saw an episode doesn't mean you know what you're doing. You probably should research further on what you're about to do, because it's not a joke. There's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years intertwined in voodoo. So you can't just be like, hey, I'm gonna, come out with this obsidian crystal, talk to homeboy and see what happens. That's not it. It's dangerous.
My magic did really start to show itself in 2015. I went to New Orleans and I was in a voodoo shop. And I was talking to a woman there, and she said that she was an atheist for a really long time and she didn't have anything that she connected to. And it wasn't until she could go and reconnect with her roots and learn all of the different procedures of Haitian voodoo that she was able to connect to something again. And that was really inspiring to me. I was like, I don't think that that's for me, but I started buying some candles and some oils and stuff like that. And it's been kind of just an amazing journey since then. It is a very beautiful thing when you can be able to connect with ancestors.
For sure. And I think some things call you more than others. And it's, being a bruja or spiritual or whatever you want to call it, it doesn't fit in months or years. It's a lifestyle. And so every level that you reach is going to require studying, learning, feeling out things, and listening to whatever you're called to.
That's something I really advise people to do, because it seems like right now is a big time where people are reclaiming the term bruja and witch and healer and curandero and like all these other terms. And that's wonderful. Like, I am all about everyone taking those terms, because it is powerful. It's very powerful to find your power. So many of us have been, told for years and years and years that, we either don't have power or we've been shown.
Right.
Reconnect with that. You're taking back these things that were taken from your ancestors and learning, repurpose them for yourself.
For sure. I think sometimes we get so wrapped up in the power that we feel that we forget that we have to be humble in front of our ancestors and our guides.
Yeah.
We don't know everything and they're still teaching us. So take your time.
It's not about being the most powerful or baddest bruja out here. I mean,
right.
Who gives a fuck? Like, you know what I mean?
There's no magical, what is it? The glove in the Avengers or whatever. There's no tapping all the way out or tapping all the way in. It's just ongoing.
Listen, I'm the worst person to ask about any of the Marvel stuff because I'm so out of touch with that universe.
I know, I think one of the last ones, the guy had to put a whole bunch of crystals in a glove to be this super powerful blowing up planet or something. I didn't see it, but I know that that's a thing. So that's what I equate it to.
Liz, thank you so much for taking the time and talking magic, because honestly, I love this stuff.
I do too.
For me, it's not about being the most powerful or the most badass or the most whatever. It's about connecting and meeting other people who are living in their power and finding out their truth, living authentically as themselves.
Yeah, and that's how we create a stronger community within the spiritual community.
For sure. Well, Liz, are you working on any projects that aren't related to magic? And, where can we support you?
I'm also a poet, so I do have 2 self-published books. I am also a podcast host of Creatively Exposed. And I just actually, magic-wise, I joined the Guala app, and that's a directory for healers. And so I do tarot, give information on chakras, and some astrology info.
Okay. And I'll have all the links for that, and I'll include your social media links as well.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much. And, I hope to have you on again and we can talk about some other cool witchy topic. Ooh, we should do an episode in Spanish in the future.
I'm open. Yeah.
Well, just because, I know that you had mentioned that, and I would have really loved to, with social justice stuff.
Yeah, I would have got too heated too, so.
And I just feel like all of terminology doesn't always, translate. I don't know the word for intersectionality in Spanish.
I have no idea.
I guess it would be interseccionalidad. Maybe that sounds right.
Yeah, I agree.
And I don't feel like these are topics that we talk about enough. Something, we all have to work on as well, is figuring out the way to take these English terms and applying them in Spanish.
Yes, for sure.
Well, we'll count on another episode where we talk in Spanish. So get ready and start looking up terminology.
I'm down. Yes, I really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for listening to the first episode of Tu Tía Bruja. I hope you enjoyed it. It was amazing to talk about witchcraft and to connect with a fellow Latinx individual because all of our perspectives are very important. So, ongoing, I'm going to try and give away things to listeners because, I value your support and I realize that right now, there isn't a lot of equity in magic. And I helped create a tarot deck last year as a way to commemorate Stonewall. With my friend Sam at Elion Studios Art, we made the Queers and Queens tarot deck. I think a lot of people forget that the only reason that we have rights is because Black and trans people rebelled against the police for 5 days. And so if you, as a queer person, don't agree with the rebellion that's happening right now, well, I'm sorry, and I regret to inform you that you really need to educate yourself. We have these rights because of people who just were sick, treated as if they were subhuman. I would love to give away a copy of this tarot deck. I will be giving away another copy on our social media at Tu Tía Bruja on Instagram. If you tag a friend, you're entered to win there. If you would like to win from listening to the show, check out the show notes, and I will include a form you can fill out. I will be announcing the winner on the 6th episode. You'll find out why soon enough. Thank you for listening. If you want to keep up with me, you can follow me at BexBCastin. If you want to follow up with the podcast, you can follow at Tu Tía Bruja on Twitter and Instagram. And if you would like to get involved, be a guest, donate a product to be given away as one of the Tu Tía Bruja giveaways, please get in contact. My website is www.bexbcastin.com. There is a Tu Tía Bruja tab, so you can click on that, and I will be able to get in contact with you. Well, thank you for listening, beautiful people. In the show notes, I'll also be including some resources, how to donate to the protesters to help them, in addition to some resources, books that you can read to educate yourself if you just feel confused and you don't understand maybe why some of the opinions you have are wrong. So read a little bit. You got it. You can figure it out. Thank you for listening. I love you and I value you, and I hope you have a really great rest of your day.
I can see